directing us to the University of Richmond.
I hope there'll be more than that, but
I thought you were going to go to Virginia Tech for the engineering.
they also have a comfort dog that she was quite taken with. I think they also have an excellent academic curriculum. Yeah, but
So how many has she toured? How many of y'all toured?
we've done 4 so far. So
Where else is she going on with Washington Lee and Richmond?
we've looked at UVA and William and Mary. So we're going to look at Martha Jeff. No, Martha.
Does she have a rank grade where she might be able to get some?
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I'm sure look into that.
We're looking in, what's the one in Fredericksburg? Martha Washington?
I didn't end up using it.
Washington?
I think so.
I got a partial scholarship to UVA. That paid tuition. I mean, so what the hell will I normally pay, but it was something, you know.
Yeah.
And,
Third, yeah, I think it's the third oldest. And it's lasted this long?
Then she wants to look at JMU. And then,
pretty much all within the state of Virginia.
yeah, we may go up and look at Shenandoah. Longwood's too close to home. She won't even talk about it. Too close.
I tell you, she's not, like, become homesick.
Okay. We'll see.
The time has arrived for us to begin our meeting. Would everyone please rise for a moment of silence, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could, just a report. We've got, there's one, he made it. Supervisor Jones, I believe, is going to be having to call in, and Supervisor Townsend is out of town at a work event, so he won't be unable to attend tonight.
I wish to recognize that Board Member Robert M. Jones is participating this evening via remote telephone access. As required by the Board of Supervisors electronic meeting policy and Section 2.2, 3708.2 of the Code of Virginia, Supervisor Jones has provided notice that he would have to physically be absent from tonight's meeting due to a work conflict. He has requested remote participation in tonight's meeting from his home in Rice, Virginia. His request is in conformance with the board's electronic meeting policy and the requirement of the Code of Virginia. Pending an objection from a member of the board, Supervisor Jones's participation shall be approved and noted in the minutes of this meeting. Thank you. At this time, I have a public hearing on redistricting led by Sarah Elam Puckett.
Yes, ma'am. Tonight is the second of the 2 advertised public hearings that the board authorized to enable our citizens to provide input on the update of the county's redistricting plan and the comprehensive amendments to Chapter 42 elections of the county code. Following tonight's hearing, the board will take no action, and this item will return to your agenda at your April board meeting, at which time you will consider the plan for approval or amendment.
Okay.
And to the best of my knowledge, unless, so
No
we have,
questions?
there are, unless there's somebody online, I'm not aware of anyone who has requested comment time. There's nobody online.
Okay. Nobody
So,
online.
yes, ma'am, there is no action for tonight, so.
Okay.
Someone did just do online.
are they?
So is somebody online?
Oh,
Oh, thank you, Bobby.
okay, terrific.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, with that, there is no action, and we'll bring it back to you at your April board meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that. Okay, next we have Emergency Operations Plan approval, again by Ms. Sarah Bucket.
So Section 44-14619 of the Code of Virginia requires that each political subdivision of the Commonwealth prepare and keep current a local emergency operations plan. The one that I distributed to the board at your March meeting is the update from our 2018 plan. So every 4 years, the Code and the Virginia Department of Emergency Management urge us to review them and comprehensively update them. Pending any questions from the board, Trey and I feel confident that this plan will have us ready to respond to any emergency. And I have placed in front of you, there's a resolution in your packet, but I would ask that you take a look at the one that I handed out right before the meeting. There's a new provision in the Code of Virginia that wants each locality to acknowledge that the operation, your emergency operations plan will be applied equitably, and that specifically the needs of minority and vulnerable communities will be met in emergencies. So I think for the County of Prince Edward, we know that's true through the operations that we ran following the ice storm, during our efforts, during COVID. I think we placed particular interest on our minority and vulnerable populations and communities. But the Code of Virginia now requires an ask. They say that your plan, that there be language buried in the plan. I thought this Board of Supervisors would want it right up front to acknowledge that the board is saying and directing the Director of Emergency Management and all staff that this was a priority for Prince Edward County. So I went back and revised the resolution and included that next to last. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors, the Director of Emergency Management, and all employees of the County of Prince Edward who are tasked to mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from natural or man-made disasters shall ensure that the Prince Edward County Emergency Operations Plan is applied equitably and that the needs of minority and vulnerable communities are met during emergencies. Insert that missing word. And then this, the adoption of this resolution is the approval of the 2022 update.
Okay, may I entertain a motion for approval of this document?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's a motion and second of approval. Patty?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? David?
Yes.
And Odessa, yes. Okay, so moved. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the extension of construction deadline, Triborough Shelving and Partition Corporation. Mr. Stanley.
Madam Chair, members of the board, at the board's February 9, 2016 meeting, the board approved the sale of Lot 7A consisting of 3.489 acres for $20,000 per acre in the Prince Edward County Industrial Park to Triborough Shelving. Triborough acquired the property in question on June 1 of 2017 at a cost of $20,000 per acre for a total price of $69,780. As part of the purchase agreement, the county granted Triborough the ability to request an annual extension for a period up to 5 years to commence construction on the parcel designated as Lot 7A. To our knowledge, there was no extension requested by Triborough nor any extensions granted by the Prince Edward County Industrial Development Authority. Based on the signed agreement, the 5-year period will expire on June 1 of 2022. This time, the county needs approval of Triborough for basically right-of-way or fee acquisition of right-of-way for permanent drainage easements, temporary construction easement to allow construction of the industrial access road, and permanent slope and drainage easements. If you remember, about a year ago, after I came on board, we were trying to get this industrial park access project going. Part of the issue was that the right-of-way needed for the road was part of the VDOT property, which doesn't make sense because we're basically trying to build a road to dedicate it to turn it over to VDOT. But in order to acquire the VDOT property, there was a lengthy, probably 2-year process to go through to acquire that right-of-way. I think the county thought it had everything it needed when it sold the property to VDOT. Just wasn't the case. So we've shifted the road over kind of to the left or to the east, and we've been working with Triborough, trying to work with Triborough. So basically, after negotiation, Triborough and the IDA have, in consideration of the request, the items which they identified, we have offered them $16,802.80 for the purchase of 0.335 of an acre. And the county would include a commercial entrance gate. And it's actually, it's purchased, but it's also, part of that's the easement area. The fee simple area is 10,277 square feet. And they also want an extension of the timeline for construction on that parcel for an additional 7 years. So the IDA at their board meeting last week agreed to the concept as outlined. What we need the board to is agree on the 7-year extension for them to construct it. I think we're trying to be a good neighbor. The property, would have ultimately reverted, or the IDA could have taken the property back, but we're trying to be good neighbors with Triborough and work things out with them. Triborough has come to the table. We think we've got an agreement. I just need the board to say, yes, let's grant the 7-year extension for the construction.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval of this request.
Before, so the way I read this, we're gonna give them $16,802 plus grant them a 7-year extension.
Yes, sir.
They gave 20,000 acre for it, and it can revert back to us, and they're asking for us to pay them and give them a 7-year extension.
We could take the whole thing back for the $69,780. Yes, sir. The offer, I want to say that the first offer that went back over was an offer of 10,000. And they wanted and the 16 was based off the current assessed value, which is closer to 50 an acre, Supervisor Emmert, versus the 20 per acre. That's why that number looks higher. It's because the property since that time is gone up in value. It's been a delicate dance of trying to be a good neighbor and trying to work this out.
I understand, I know who you're dealing with.
Anybody else? Okay, so I entertain a motion for approval of this request.
Yes, so move.
Okay,
Second.
okay. It's been motioned second for this approval. Patty?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? No. Okay, David?
I'm a no.
Okay. So,
Dr. Pride, I don't
This-
think you voted. Did you
Ma'am?
vote?
oh, yes, and I said yes.
And it passes.
So it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not the outcome I would have wanted, but I think it's ultimately we're trying to build a road and trying to keep everybody happy the best we can.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, the revised budget schedule adoption. Mrs. Stanley.
So, originally tonight was supposed to be a budget meeting. And with the current situation being the General Assembly finished the session without a budget. The governor has called a special session that will start on April 4. I've been told by a couple of good sources that delegates and senators have been told to at least keep 2 days aside for the session. I think everyone's hope is they will come out of that session with a budget. What hangs us up, and hangs every community really in Virginia, is that where the state budget falls impacts our constitutional officer salaries. And most importantly, it impacts the school system budget. Dr. Johnson, and we've got after this meeting, Dr. Johnson will be here to talk with our Joint Finance Committee about where we stand with the various state school budgets. You've got a House version, and then you've got a Senate version, and there's I think about a $2.2 million gap between the two budgets. In the paper today, if anybody got the Herald, there's both Buckingham County and Cumberland have advertised their budgets in the paper. What they both have elected to do, and they're almost forced to do it, counties that bill twice a year, meaning the counties that collect taxes on June 5 and December 5, they have to get the bills out for that June billing out really right there at the end of April to give 30, they want to give 30 days at least for folks to be able to get their bill and pay the bill. A few years ago, we had a delay with the state budget, and everybody had to push collection back to June and into July, and it plays havoc because money that you collect in really the June 5th billing is the second half of the current fiscal year, not next fiscal year. So it throws things off as far as the collections. But what those localities have done a lot across the state is they have to make some assumptions. So they will usually go conservative, use the lower numbers that are being talked about, plug those into the budget, have a public hearing, adopt tax rates, and adopt a budget. That way they can get their tax bills out on time. Then if the state comes back with more revenue than anticipated, because the way the state code is written, if it's more than 1% over what we would have in our budget, then you have to have another public hearing and go back and amend the budget and reappropriate the additional funding. I think the good news is that because we don't do twice a year billing right now, is that we're not forced to have our tax bills, our bills need to go out later in the year. So we don't have to worry about that timing. We're more worried about the timing to get budgets done and get the school budget over so they can get the school contracts out for teachers. But I told Dr. Johnson, that's why she came, is that we need to have those discussions, at least talk about the two different options. Because I think, one option they have may not require any additional local funds. The other one, they may be asking for significant local funds, and it's difficult for us to be flexible to make those kind of decisions as we get farther into the process. Certainly, once we advertise tax rates and everything, it's almost impossible to change a whole lot. All you could do is shuffle money from one category to the other. You really don't, you can't really generate additional revenue. So I've taken the schedule that's in your packet tonight. If the board, I put at the bottom, it's showing as revised by the board today's date if you all approve it. But basically, rather than having the board adopt a budget prior to the end of April to meet the May 1st school deadline, it would push us to having a public hearing on May 3rd, which would be a separate meeting, that's a Tuesday night, and then on May 10th at our regular May meeting to adopt the budget and tax rates. Because you can't adopt the budget, there has to be basically a 7-day period between the public hearing and adoption of the budget. So it slides everything a couple weeks. But based on this information, this would have the school superintendent coming to us on April 12 with the budget recommendation and the board authorizing a public hearing on April 19 for that May 3rd hearing. So it really only gives us about a week to plug any holes, but it is what it is. And I think it works. The main thing is, does it work with everyone's schedule? It works from a timing standpoint. It works from an standpoint. It puts us farther behind, but again, it's nothing we can't handle. We don't have to worry about getting the bills out, so.
Doug, it seems like to me, if my memory serves me right, which it doesn't always every time, but a lot of the counties used to set it up early in order to sign teachers and whatnot. And that may be the reason. I'm sure our chairman would know more about that than me.
Code of Virginia says that we will give the school board a budget by May 1. And that is really dictated with the concept being so they can issue teacher contracts.
That's right.
So that's the intent. It's in the code, but there's no penalty. So we would be behind, but of course, we're behind because the state was behind and we have to meet the advertisement requirements. And again, just because the state adopts the budget on, say, April 5th, I know the comp board has already said it'll take them 5 to 7 days to get that information out to all the constitutional officers. And I'm guessing the state superintendent being able to have that in a week is going to be a tight turnaround. So everybody's going to be, I think, scrambling around trying to meet deadlines. And then you're going to see all the other counties that have already adopted their budgets and having to go back out and have another public hearing.
So what happens if she doesn't present the budget on April 12th?
Either we make the decision to go without. I think we may make the decision that we have to go with the best information you
Yeah.
have available on that
Yeah.
point. I mean, we're sliding a couple weeks.
Because that could happen, I mean, that's soon.
Yeah. The most important thing is that we have the appropriations have to be adopted by July 1. That's our regular meeting in June. So we're stacking everything up to be able to, that's the real crunch point. Not that we couldn't have a special meeting, but come July 1, we want to be able to pay bills.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just need a motion and a second and approval, Dr. Pride, to approve the revised budget schedule for
Okay,
FY
that's okay.
22-23.
Could we have a motion for approval of that?
So moved.
Second.
So moved in second. Patty?
Yes.
Lou? Yes. Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? Yes. David?
Yes.
And Odessa, yes. So moved, motion approved. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to recess until April 5th, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors room with presentations by outside agencies.
Actually, let me correct that. So it's 5:30. It's actually not outside agencies. That's my typo.
You're right,
It'll be
that's what-
just a regular next budget meeting.
So it's at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
On the 5th,
The 5th.
April 5th at 5:30. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Anybody second?
I'll make the motion. Sorry about
Second.
that.
Okay, motion and second. We'll move with Patty.
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? David?
Yes.
Odessa, yes.
And that's at 5:30?
5:30. Okay, April 5th, meeting is adjourned.